Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. Hope you enjoy. Story number 1. Deathworlder Senses, written by Echoing Cascade. Marines, human soldiers, are built different. It comes from being Deathworlders, but Marines are something else. Something more. Marines are what the Terran Forces throws at impossible tasks. Given enough Marines, time and crayons, even causality and logic inevitably bends to their will. These fearless warriors were walking around the peaceful city on bright sun, clearly terrified. Shira had fought alongside Captain Thorn and his Marine squad against the Mosoran pirates. During that time, she had made fast friends with the humans. When they went on leave, they'd agreed to visit her home planet, Bright Sun, and stay at the Soran capital for a few days. They seemed quite happy on the shuttle ride to the planet, but the second they left the ship, they were on edge. At first, I thought it was just their warriors' instincts that had them walking around on high alert, but something is clearly off. Shira had been observing her guests, who were becoming more and more agitated. They'd stopped listening to her explanations and were walking back to back, forming defensive circle, their hands on their weapons. Maybe we should stop the sightseeing, go to the hotel for nourishment. Yes, yes, that would be good, yes. As they walked towards the hotel, she heard one of the Marines whisper, "They're everywhere." She didn't understand what the Marine meant, but she would soon find out. The meal had lasted all of 5 minutes. None of the humans ate anything, and she knew from having shared meals with them that they loved talk steak. Some were getting the nerve to grab the utensils when one of the Marines sat up with a sidearm in hand and turned around, aiming the weapon at thin air. "Touch me! It fucking touched me!" It took a bit of convincing, but Captain Thorn managed to calm the man down. We need to, rest, yes. Things will be better tomorrow, yes." Shira was at a loss for words. She simply nodded. She couldn't make head or tails of what was going on. Why did he point his gun at nothing? And why did it seem like the other humans could see what he was aiming at? That last thought remained with Shira as she went to bed. She would have to ask Captain Thorn what was going on. She had endured more than what was polite already. In the middle of the night, Shira was woken up by screams. Human screams. She got clothed in a hurry and left her room just in time to see the Marines run their shuttle parked behind the hotel. They hadn't even stopped to open the doors on their way. They shoulder charged through them, and before she could even ask what the seven hells was going on, they had left for orbit and docked inside their frigate. Shira ran from her room to the contact of the Marine captain. "Oh, what's wrong? Is everything all right? Are any of your men injured?" The captain answered the hollow call from his quarters. He had a large glass of whiskey in his right hand, and he was looking down at it. There's nothing wrong. Not really. Maybe." The man was shaking, naked terror oozing from his body. "What the hell is going on? What was got you so scared?" "On our home planet, Earth, our ancestors were prey for millions of years. We have extra senses compared to other races. We can feel when someone or something is gazing at us." He took a large gulp of whiskey and said, "Something. We can sense movement on our skin and catch things moving from the corner of our eye." "Okay, but what?" "Ghosts, Shira. We can see your ghosts. They are in every shadow, behind every piece of furniture, behind every person, and they come out and false at night." The man downed what remained of his glass. "We had heard stories, even seen things in the battlefield, but we assumed it was just combat fatigue. It wasn't gods. Above, it wasn't." Shira was confused, but also quite curious. Proven life after death. This is big, bigger than big. She asked the question that she would regret for the rest of her life. "What do they look like?" James Thorn, Marine captain, who she had seen call an artillery barrage on his own position with a smile on his face, who had charged the Mosoran tank with nothing but a combat knife in his hand, looked up at her. He made a face like a frightened child. he cried. Shira followed his gaze and looked behind her for a split second. She saw them too. Humans avoid Saran planets as a rule since the incident. Many humans avoid any facility with a significant Saran population, and Shira, well, Shira never slept again without the help of drugs since that day. End of story. Story number 2. Humans are not tree dwellers, written by Fox Corp. When humanity was first curated some 100,000 years ago, they were a primitive race, few in number, young in age. They were stuck with basic tools and technologies. Living in mud brick houses, humans congregated into small communities. They had only just begun farming and selectively breeding crops. We realized their potential and added them to the list of 250 species with an optimistic outlook. At that time, they were the youngest of all the 250 species. They'd taken their first steps as a species, but hadn't quite mastered anything else. As always, we were hopeful that they would succeed, but catalogued every last living organism on their planet for safekeeping. After another 10,000 years passed, a curator decided to visit the humans once again. Of the 250 species in the Milky Way, humanity was the only survivor. Every other species had wiped itself out with weapons or science projects gone wrong. The curator found a world bountiful with life and progress. Humanity had progressed much faster than the average species in the Milky Way. The curator was hopeful that humanity would stay on the path of progress, but knew that it was unlikely to happen. They acquired databanks of all species, languages, cultures, architecture, and technologies. Should humanity fall, their memory could still live on within our museums and archives. This was the expected outcome. Races with such rapid advancement were the most likely to fly too close to the sun and be destroyed through their own curiosity. After another 1,000 years, the curator returned, only to find an ash-choked land devoid of any obvious signs of life. The curator was saddened, but not surprised. The Milky Way was added to the long list of dead galaxies, and we moved on. This brings us to modern day. Several expeditions to the Milky Way's neighboring galaxies have yielded shocking revelations. The galaxies simply no longer exist. No central black hole, no stars, no planets, no life, not even a mote of dust. Within residual radio and subspace emissions, we found only one constant above the chaotic background: Birch. This name was completely unexpected and unknown. No life form within this galaxy had ever developed such a word. Most couldn't even pronounce it. Yet it was all that remained of this barren void. After searching the archives for many years, we discovered the humans once more. Birch was the standard word in English language. It was simply a word for a tree. After this revelation was made, the journey to the Milky Way began. Upon arrival, it was realized that the Milky Way was still very much intact, but gravitational anomalies. Hopefully, that human had emerged on Earth. Curators swarmed the Sol system. They found a technologically advanced human civilization, no longer the primitive humans of old. No traces of the birch trees either. After discovering the humans were back in the Milky Way, more searching was done on the gravitational anomaly. The Milky Way had not grown in size, but had completely doubled in mass. All of this new mass was centered around the Milky Way's central supermassive black hole, which had now ballooned to a light year in diameter and over the entire galaxy's worth of mass. Once the curators arrived at the central black hole, they were greeted by a structure of unimaginable proportions. A gargantuan ecumenopolis measuring 2 light years in diameter, made up of the uppermost layer of the birch. After searching through human cultural records, we came across the idea of a birch planet. Thought by Paul Birch, the term birch planet was coined by Isaac Arthur. At the time, it was a theoretical possible megastructure. Now, it is a real structure of even grander proportions. Through the gravitational manipulation, gravity is kept at 9.8 meters per second squared across the entire structure's many layers. The central black hole provides a base gravity and also acts as a power source for the heat sink for the rest of the structure. Innumerable numbers of humans live in this birch world, from what we can learn via scans. It has a surface area comparable to that of multiple galaxies' worth of habitable areas. It appears that only the upper layers are used for habitation. The rest of the structure experiences extreme time dilation, and as such is relegated to medical waiting areas, storage, resource extraction, energy production, and general maintenance hubs. This still leaves over 95% of the structure purely dedicated to habitation and the many amenities necessary for such a post-scarcity civilization. Incredibly, 99% of this massive structure is inhabited. Multiple active support rings outside the current structure suggest that the humans are adding even more layers to the birch planet's gargantuan frame. The absolute insanity of this discovery has rocked our scientific community to the core. New efforts are being taken to investigate species we once thought dead. For if humanity, a dead race, could make such a structure, what else could we have missed? But as the days of renewed expedition have not yet come, we only know one thing for certain. Humanity certainly doesn't dwell in the trees, but the birch is all-encompassing. End of story. I just quickly want to thank the Tier 5 patrons and channel members: Alithia Barkey, Cam Maxwell, Caspar Arnholtz, Albarden Guster, Arcadian, Lord Azrakal, and Joachim Backer.